Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving into that wild, incredibly fascinating boundary where brilliant human genius collides head-on with the absolute unbreakable walls of physics. Throughout history, human progress has basically run on a simple loop. Someone gets a totally wild idea, everybody else says it's impossible, and then they go and build it anyway. But what happens when the skeptics are actually right? Well, today we're going to look at the spectacular machines, the grand systems, and the deeply obsessive characters who poured their fortunes into building the literal impossible.
I know, it sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, right? But what do glowing urine, a fake robot, and a massive 187-foot tower actually have in common? Well, they are all centerpieces of 5 historical attempts to build things that simply cannot exist. And by looking at these really vivid, colorful historical failures, we aren't just going to laugh at the mistakes of the past, we're actually going to see how these dreamers, and honestly sometimes outright con artists, helped draw the exact boundaries of what is physically possible in our universe. Section 1. Faking infinite energy. Bessler's perpetual motion machine.
Okay, picture this. It's 1712 in Germany, and a guy named Johann Bessler announces to the world that he's done it. He's achieved the holy grail of mechanics, a perpetual motion machine. He shows off this overbalanced wooden wheel that, once you give it a little push, supposedly spins forever with zero external power. He even claimed it could do heavy work, like lifting weights. Naturally, people were super skeptical. So in 1717, Prince Karl decides to put it to the ultimate test. He locks a massive 12-foot version of Bessler's wheel inside a secure room in his castle, physically seals the doors with wax, and posts armed guards outside. 2 weeks go by, still spinning. They lock it up again for an incredible 40 days. And when they crack those seals, the wheel is just humming along perfectly, completely unfatigued. I mean, the stakes were astronomical at this point. Even Peter the Great wanted to buy the thing.
It looked like absolute magic. But we really have to ask, did he do it? Did Bessler actually beat thermodynamics and create infinite energy out of absolutely nothing?
The answer is a hilarious, resounding no. See, Bessler was incredibly paranoid. He actually smashed his own machine to pieces when a buyer demanded to look at the gears. The truth didn't even come out until years later when his maid finally confessed. The reality was that the machine wasn't perpetual at all. The main axle ran right through a wall into the next room, where his exhausted maid, his wife, and his brother literally just took turns secretly tugging on a concealed rope to keep the wheel spinning during those grand guarded trials.
And the big takeaway here just boils down to the basic laws of thermodynamics. The first law tells us that energy cannot be created from nothing. You simply can't get more out of a system than you put into it. And the second law? That introduces entropy, which essentially means friction always wins in the end. A machine running forever without an external energy source is just a hard physical impossibility in our universe. So, yeah, Bessler didn't beat physics, he just had a very, very tired family.
Section 2. The ultimate 19th century con. Keely's sympathetic vibrations.
So the dream of free power definitely didn't die with Bessler. The scammers just got way more sophisticated. Enter John Keely in 1872 Philadelphia. This guy promised to totally replace steam and coal by tapping into the harmonic frequencies of water using, get this, tuning forks and zithers. He claimed that just a couple drops of water, if you activated them with the exact right musical note, could power a train all the way from New York to San Francisco. And the craziest part? For 26 years, he managed to play the psychology of greed perfectly. He fooled wealthy Gilded Age capitalists into funding his incredibly lavish lifestyle for over 2.5 decades. Whenever his investors started getting antsy, he'd just stage another spectacular demonstration. He'd bring out these massive brass canisters, the pressure gauges would spike, and it looked like absolute undeniable magic.
But the harsh reality finally came crashing down after he died in 1898. Investigators went into his laboratory, tore up the floorboards, and, well, they didn't find the harmonic secrets of the universe. What they found was a massive 3-ton hidden steel air tank. It was this highly sophisticated, totally hidden pneumatic system running on compressed air. So whenever Keely struck his tuning fork with that dramatic flair, it was literally just a theatrical cue for him to secretly tap a foot pedal, which released compressed air through hidden brass tubes to spin his motors. A total brilliant scam.
Section 3. The Golden Alchemy Accident. Hennig Brand's quest for the Philosopher's Stone.
Now, long before those mechanical frauds, 17th century chemists were busy chasing alchemy's ultimate impossible dream, turning base metals into pure gold. And there was this German alchemist named Hennig Brand who had a really unique theory. He figured that because human urine had a golden yellow hue, it must literally contain microscopic traces of gold. So he embarked on what has to be the most visually bizarre, gross-to-glow sequence in scientific history. He collected 1,500 gallons of urine from local soldiers. He let it rot until it absolutely stunk up the entire neighborhood. Then he boiled it down into this thick, sludgy paste, blasted it with extreme temperatures in a furnace, and finally condensed the resulting vapors.
Spoiler alert, he didn't find any gold. But what he did find was visually spectacular. His horrifying boiling process accidentally yielded this weird, white, waxy substance, and it glowed with this incredibly eerie, pale green light in the dark, and would just spontaneously burst into brilliant white flames the second it touched the air. He named it Phosphorus Miraboris, the miraculous bearer of light. So while transmuting elements in a dingy basement is chemically impossible, Braun's bizarre, disgusting failure actually made him the first person in recorded history to discover a brand new chemical element, element 15, phosphorus.
Section 4. The original fake AI, the Mechanical Turk.
Let's switch gears to artificial intelligence and take a trip to 1770 Vienna. An inventor named Wolfgang von Kempelen rolled out this chess-playing wooden mannequin known as the Mechanical Turk. He presented it to the Empress, claiming it had a fully automated, clockwork mechanical brain capable of high-level human intellect. And it didn't just casually play chess, it utterly dominated. The supposed clockwork brain fooled the entire world for 80 years. It defeated seasoned chess masters, distinguished statesmen, and actual monarchs. It completely baffled Benjamin Franklin when it played him in Paris. And in 1809, it even crushed Napoleon Bonaparte, physically nodding its creepy little wooden head to tell the emperor he was in checkmate.
So how exactly did a wooden box calculate complex chess strategies back in the 1700s? Well, it was just brilliant stage magic. Kempelen would open up the shallow cabinet to prove to the audience that it was stuffed full of gears and cogs. But in reality, there was a vertically challenged, extremely sweaty human chess master hiding inside. The guy would literally slide around on a rolling track to stay out of sight whenever the doors were opened. Then, while the game was on, he'd use magnets attached to the bottom of the board to track where the pieces were moving up top, and he'd manipulate the Turk's arm using a series of hidden levers.
But here's the crucial point, and it's kind of staggering. The mathematics of chess are just astronomical. There are more potential games of chess than there are atoms in the observable universe. True, chess calculating AI was entirely 100% impossible until IBM's Deep Blue finally did it in 1997. The story of the Turk just proves how incredibly badly humanity wanted artificial intelligence. We were willing to build an impossibly complex puppet just to pretend we'd already succeeded.
Section 5. Tesla's Global Power Dream, the Wardenclyffe Tower. For our final story, we're jumping into the 20th century with one of the most brilliant minds to ever live, Nikola Tesla. In 1901, Tesla had this world-changing vision. He wanted to transmit free, clean, wireless electrical energy across the entire globe, shooting it straight through the air and the Earth itself. To pull this off, he actually convinced the famous financier J.P. Morgan to give him a massive sum of $150,000 to build the Wardenclyffe Tower, this colossal 187-foot structure out in New York. But Morgan abruptly pulled the plug on the funding. Why? Well, he asked a very simple, very capitalist question. If anyone, anywhere can just pull electricity out of the thin air, where exactly do we put the meter to charge them for it?
But here's the thing. Even if Tesla had endless funding, physics was just waiting in the wings to ruin his dream. It comes down to the inverse square law. This dictates that electromagnetic radiation spreads out and weakens exponentially as it travels. So a wireless energy signal sent all the way across the Atlantic Ocean would be so incredibly dispersed by the time it got to the other side, it wouldn't even have the juice to power a single light bulb, let alone an entire factory.
Furthermore, Tesla kind of ignored a pretty terrifying atmospheric reality. The Earth isn't a perfect conductor. If you actually tried treating our planet like a giant vacuum tube and pushed that much raw electricity through the air, you would have to ionize the atmosphere. And doing that, it would create massive, continuous lightning storms that would completely destroy any living thing anywhere near the transmitters. So it was a beautiful utopian dream, but practically speaking, it was a physical nightmare.
Section 6. Why Impossible Dreams Matter. The Blueprints for the Future.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, we really need to step back and look at the big picture. Why do these impossible dreams even matter? I mean, it's super easy to look back now and label these people as fools or just scammers. And yeah, sure, Keeley and Bessler were absolute con artists. But the dreamers, people like Henning Brand and Nikola Tesla, They proved that pursuing the impossible is actually a vital, necessary step on the ladder of human progress. Because honestly, the line between a genius breakthrough and an impossible failure is really only visible in hindsight. Without alchemists doing gross things like chasing golden urine, we simply don't get modern chemistry. It's through these spectacular absolute failures that we actually discover our true boundaries and find the blueprints for the future.
So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. If you could bend the laws of physics just once, which of these impossible inventions would you most want to see actually work?
Please like and subscribe.